Hello and welcome to this week's GG Weekend Watch, sponsored by SBK. But we have a significant non-runner on this week's show. Daryl Carter is unfortunately not with us again this week as he is having to work at Exeter. So expect a notable rule for on this week's podcast. So you have Andrew Mount and myself to guide you through the races from Ascot and Haydock this weekend. Andrew, I don't know about you, but I'd say at the minute, Daryl Carter, he seems like an inmate at Seven Barrows, doesn't he?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, Kate. There's no suitable races for him.
Yeah.
He needs a right-handed, straight, left-handed figure of 8 track, 8 miles and good to soft ground. If he doesn't get that, we don't see him. So
there's just not enough podcasts for him to feature in, unfortunately. So it's just the nature of the calendar. But no, of course.
He's such a good tipster. He's in such high demand. So
exactly.
We might have to start paying him more.
Yeah, exactly.
But to be honest, I think 2 bags of Haribo is a fair price to get him for an hour or so anyway.
An extra pack, then a fruit pastilles on top of that, and he'll be over the moon. We jest, of course, Nikki Henderson. We think you're a genius, and of course we love you. But we have to laugh at something with the nature of national hunt racing at the minute, don't we? Really. So we'll get our laughs where we can. And so unfortunately, as we say, we do not have Daryl this week, but we still have some fascinating contests to delve into. Anyway, 6 scheduled races from Ascot and Haydock on this week's show. And Andrew, I'm happy we do have you though, because you could hardly have been in better form from last week's show, where you had a 5-timer with In Turn to Savola winning at 5-1, Blazing Carla even money, Guard Your Dreams at 5-1, 2 for Gold at 3-1, and Martello Sky at 10-3. So big congratulations, Andrew. I expect you to go one better this week from all of our 6 scheduled races to get up. Cheers, all 6, please.
Still managed to have a losing nap amongst all those anyway.
Always a way.
Although at least I did go with Guard Your Dreams in the Racing Post nap table. So
well done.
Put that one up as the biggest bet in my column. So I say, as we always say, what we think on Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon can change considerably by Saturday. So do check the columns for me and Daryl on Saturday to see what we actually want to put our money on. We have some good stuff this weekend, isn't there? So
yeah,
cracking. It's long walk hurdle day at Ascot. It's a race that brings back fond memories with Rev to Sevilla.
Of course, you well, very, very closely associated to. So this must be a pretty nice walk down memory lane for you then this Saturday with him. But seriously, big congratulations for last week. And again, as Andrew said, for any other tips or naps, then do look at their blogs on Saturday for any changes to selections from this podcast. So we shall begin at Ascot though, Andrew, and we shall start with the 150. This is a 0 to 150 handicap chase for 4-year-olds and over 2 mile, 2.5 furlongs. It's a pretty open race with Palmer's Hill currently heading the betting at 7-2 at the time of recording. But Andrew, of course, I'm going to start with your opinion in this race, please. So please kickstart us with a winner.
I'll give you a loser first of all. That's the favourite Palmer's Hill. Nothing against the horse in question, but I just think he's best when fresh. He's got a fantastic record on seasonal debuts. I think it's 3 wins and a next second from 4 starts. That next second in the field of 17. When he's had his second or subsequent starts of the season, he's 0 from 5. So he's a fairly lightly raced, possibly fragile individual who needs a good break between his races, ideally. And maybe that's by accident rather than by design. But I don't want to back him on the back of a win 5 weeks ago. I think he might need a little bit longer off in between those runs. So 7-2, I can leave him alone quite happily. Guy is another one that it wouldn't surprise me if he won, but do I want to back a horse who's won just once from 10 starts? He does seem to have a touch of seconditis about him. So, maybe one to stick in your place pots, but not to be backing up sort of 5 or 6-1. The one I like, I tipped in Racing and Football earlier Racing and Football Outlook earlier this week is Night in Dubai for the Skeltons. Now, again, he's got the ground in his favour. I think his thing is dried out to good to soft in places now, but it should still be soft enough for this son of Dubai destination. That's a sire whose chasers tend to show a good profit on soft or heavy going. And this one, I thought, ran a really good race on his comeback after a long break, finishing 5th at Aintree, not beating a million miles. It was 10-1 shot, beating less than 8 lengths. It was good to soft ground. and he's now got the proper ground he needs. And if you look at his record second time out, first, second by first, second by a nose, and first. So 3 runs, very nearly 3 wins. So he'll be fit. He's got a suitable ground. Lots of ticks in boxes for Night in Dubai. He was 8-1 on Monday when I first looked at this race, and he's just been sort of nibbled at steadily into about 6-1 since then.
Yeah, I'd say around 6-1 on my showing for Night in Dubai. Fascinating runner for the Skeltons then. But Andrew, not keen on the favourite though, Palmer's Hill. And I have to say I was in agreement there. I did want to take on Palmer's Hill in this race. And Guy was one of the first sources I looked at on the trends. And I had the same as you. At that price, I'm not overly convinced about his profile. He's had plenty of chances, as has Sully Dock, who is a horse where, again, on the trends, as he very often does, he seems to fit every single one of them virtually. But I just can't bring myself to side with Sully Dock anymore. I didn't side with him last time out at Newbury either, which of course I was relieved about. But I thought he had everything in his favour on his last 2 runs over this course and distance on his first couple of starts this season. And he just couldn't really threaten at all in those. And still, I was trying to forgive him where possible. So for all I do think he's a danger in here, I just can't bring myself to side with him. Cue him dotting up then and finally coming good.
And it's all about price as well, isn't it? If this was Chelsea Festival and he's 25-1, you'd probably think I've got to have a couple of quid each way just in case. But at single figure odds, leave him alone.
That's exactly it, is the single figure odds about him, which are just, because he's still just lingering there. So the one who I did eventually come down on was Diego de Charmil, or Charmil, is again dependent on commentator, but I'll go with Charmil, he's a 9-year-old now, this lad, but with just 13 starts over fences, winning 3 of those. The last 3 chase starts all coming at Ascot as well, where he did fare well on each of those occasions, earning him the £2 higher chase mark still. But he has been given £3 back for his return to fences last time out when running well enough to finish 5th behind before midnight in that handicap chase over 2.5 miles furlong. So I think for sure this is the perfect time for him to be stepping up in trip here, because he's the 2nd highest rated in this race with his stablemate Dolos, the only one rated higher. But I'm far more confident about the form of Diego de Charmil that he is in, that he's bringing into this race. I just hope they don't ride him too far back here, because it is difficult to know exactly how he's going to be ridden. They seem to mix it up sort of every time he runs. But if he's not ridden too far back, then Diego de Charmil was my sort of tentative selection in a very wide open race. So yeah, few to go to war with there for you anyway from our selections. So we will move on to the 225, our sole grade 1 on the day in the form of the long walk hurdle, where it is the turn of the stayers in what remains a very open and topsy-turvy division. So I just keep hoping, Andrew, that the more of these races we have, the more of a hierarchy will be established. But if anything, it's been totally the opposite, and I'm completely left even more confused. But at least it's interesting from that perspective anyway, because we still have no idea. Now, you probably be thinking that the current favourite Buzz is the solid, safest bet in this race, because he is such a likeable horse. He's, as I say, the current favourite, and he did surprise me last time out, because yes, he was the even money favourite when he won, and he won as an even money favourite really should do. But I had plenty of doubts because of the small runner field, the trip for him over 2 mile 3 last time out, but he still has enough questions to have to answer for me here all the same, because yes, the trip, for all he's a Cesarewitch winner, is still a bit of a question mark obviously for him. But he's a keen and buzzy type. I mean, he has to be with that name really, doesn't he? But for all he's a hardy, gutsy horse, and he'll battle all the way to the finish regardless of the trip, I am slightly concerned that he is against the proper stayers here. So for all the stayers hurdle division isn't a great one with any real depth, but Buzz is now taking on the best of the British, as well as dear old Ronald Pump in there as well. But so for that reason, I will take him on with Thyme Hill, because yes, his reappearance start wasn't great at all, but he just looked to hate the French hurdles. He just didn't know what to do with them. He was big, he ballooned them, he was keen early, but then had to be squeezed along throughout the race. Such was the length he was losing at each of his obstacles. So yes, he was beaten a long way out, but I can forgive that at this stage. Hopefully a return to these shores will suit him much better. He has that run under his belt now, and he's simply the best horse, or the highest rated horse in this lineup, plenty more to come from him. So I'll forgive him and side with him to come out on top of best of the British then. So Andrew, how do you assess this race, please?
Yeah, similar to you, in fact, Kate. Like you,
wonderful.
I was against Buzz last time out, thinking he's a horse who can live up to his name and be buzzy in small fields and not settle. With 5 runners, I thought he might be vulnerable. He travelled supremely well, didn't pull, and won very easily. He might stay. It doesn't always translate that, sort of 2 miles 2 on the flat equals 3 miles over jumps. It often does, but you get plenty of horses who stay 2 miles on the flat but don't stay more than 2 miles over jumps. So, will he stay? Very possibly. Do you want to back him at 2 to 1, 7 to 4 to find out? Not particularly. I mean, this race is often when the stairs hurdle picture becomes clearer. Like Thistlecrack came onto the scene in this race, as did Paisley Park when he won it in 2018. We had a mammoth battle last year between Paisley Park and Thyme Hill. Thyme Hill for me is always best when fresh. So I was slightly disappointed he went to France for the Prix d'Automne rather than come straight here. Although 140 grand first prize, you can't blame them, and he wasn't exactly disgraced in finishing 5th. But like you said, the track probably didn't suit. He's had 6 weeks off. I mean, in this race last year, he hadn't had that long off, had he? After running at Newbury in the long distance hurdle, he still only went down narrowly to Paisley Park, looking for the winner for much of that race. So I thought of the prices. Thyme Hill was probably the one to back at the head of the market, 11 to 4 versus 2 to 1. I mean, Champ. My notes for Champ just say WTF, which for older listeners means what the flip. And,
of course it does, yes.
I was hoping Daryl was going to be on here, grace us with his presence and tip champ, so I could take the mic, because he does love this horse. But yeah, I mean, Nicky Henderson's saying, over fences, he needs a 3 miles on a left-handed track, and there aren't any races for him. And as Roy Delagi pointed out on Twitter the other day, that you've actually entered him in one in about 2 weeks' time, mate. There's the Lexus chase at Leopardstown, so goodness knows what's going on there. Third Wind, I mean, a few people fancied him for this race last year when he was 5th, and if you just take his record on officially soft or heavy going, 5 wins, a 2nd to 4th and a 5th from 8 starts. So if he gets loose on the lead, he might, sneak into the first 3 or 4. Ronald Pump hasn't won for over 2 years. And was well behind Thyme Hill in France last time. The one I thought was interesting in the bigger price is Thomas Darby, who won the long distance hurdle, beating Paisley Park fair and square. He likes Ascot. He's had 2 runs here, a win and the second by a head. So who's to say that Thomas Darby, who perhaps improved for the tongue tie last time, maybe he's going to be the next new kid on the block in the 3 mile staying division over hurdles. So I'm going to go Thomas Darby at the prices, but Thyme Hill was the other one I liked. I'm not having a bet at the moment. I probably won't, but it's a fascinating race anyway.
It is, isn't it? It is just fascinating. Like you say, hopefully we just can establish the hierarchy that bit better, or something can really assert themselves and burst onto a scenes and really sort of take the stayer's crown in this country anyway. But Thomas Darby, fascinating then to see if he can build on that win from last time out. And of course, we've got Paisley Park, who we've hardly mentioned there. Tom Bellamy taking the ride of Aidan Coleman, serving a ban, of course, over the Christmas period, which is going to be difficult for him to watch Paisley going out there. But yeah, but I'm happy that you were at least keen on Thyme Hill, because as I say, that's who I am then siding with. We'll move on to the 3 o'clock. This is the listed Silver Cup handicap chase for 4-year-olds and over 2 miles, 7.5 furlongs, which again is a very open race. Plenty of characters in here we know an awful lot about, of course, with Bellamy to Picton at the head of the market at a current 9 to 2 price. But we also have a dual winner of this race, Regal Encore, going for a hat-trick of wins as a 13-year-old rising 14, and he's just a legend, isn't he? Yeah. But we also have the 2018 winner in here, and Balko, who's trying to win it as a 12-year-old rising 13. So it's great to see these old boys back in here. But Andrew, who are you siding with?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. I mean, you've got to love Regal Encore. He won it in 2019, won it back in 2016, and if someone gave you a tenner free place only bet, you'd think, well, he's going to run his race here. Yeah. You have to go back a long way to find the last time he wasn't out of the first. He was outside of the first 3 at Ascot. So no reason why he can't run a good race again. As for the win part, his age, probably not. I mean, as for the rest of them, they're all there's so many you could make a good case for. I mean, I did have a good look at Valtor 20-1. So won it for Nicky Henderson, first run for Mel Rowley this year. But you just wonder whether this is a sort of prelude to Hunter Chases and sort of point to points perhaps. So I wasn't totally convinced. So ANNSAM was. I'm going for youth. The 6-year-old ANNSAM, trained by Evan Williams. This is one I tipped up in Racing and Football Outlook earlier this week as well. And I just thought I know he's not had many opportunities over fences. He's been let down by his jumping on occasions. But for me, he needs to go right-handed. He jumped out to his right over hurdles and fences previously, and he ran a pretty good race in the circumstances at Newbury last time, finishing third. And you look at his chase record. It's one win from 4 starts, but twice he's completed the track. He finished second and first, both at Ludlow, a track that does take some jumping since they introduced those new fences.
Yes.
And I think he's open to improvement as a chaser. And I thought, at the prices, he's 9-1, 10-1, something like that, I think. I thought he'll like the ground. He'll like going right-handed. He's going beyond 2.5 miles over fences for the first time since he fell at Exeter. That could suit. And if his jumping holds up, which is a fairly sizable if, then he could run a good race. But I'd rather chuck my £5 on him than go £2.50 each way and leave a long call.
Yeah, I'm slightly gutted you said about ANNSAM, because I'm nervous of him in here because of the Saturday contest. The Evan Williams team just seem to be taking at the minute, and he just has every profile to expect him as this to have been his target, then to be sighting back over fences and in the Wayne Clifford colours as well. I'm nervous of him because, as I say, I was sort of tentatively then siding against him for myself, but you make a very, very good case as well. And the one, when I was trying to narrow it down, initially I was looking at Grandson Seed, but I'm just scared they're going to ride him too far back after when he previously used to be ridden prominently, but he just did a bit too much on the front end, so they've tried to restrain that now, and that's a bit of a concern for me. Of course, Regal Uncle, but he is a 13-year-old now. For win purposes, can I see him getting it again? Not entirely sure. So it left me with 2 then, with Cloth Cap and Caribbean Boy. Now, Caribbean Boy, if I can get him at around a 9-1 price currently, he fascinates me. He does come here himself with plenty of risks attached. But again, he fits so many of these trends and favours that I want. Being a 7-year-old, he's got the perfect rating of 145, which leaves him ideally weighted. Hopefully, they're going to try and ride him prominently, which is what they tried to do in the Paddy Power Gold Cup. They lined him up.
First time cheek pieces, hasn't he, as well? That's a positive angle for Nicky Henderson chasers.
Oh, is it? Oh, fantastic. Wonderful. That wasn't an angle that I had really delved too far into. So that's wonderful as well. And I just think he needs them because he just looked bottly to me at Cheltenham. He really did. You can see why they lined him up wider, because obviously he was sent up as favourite for the Topham. Didn't take to the fences there at all. And I think that had a lasting effect on him despite the summer break. When he came back on that return in the Paddy Power Gold Cup, obviously the frenetic gallop that's set up front there. And you can see him going down to the first. He pitched in and he lost length straight away at the first. He then came to the second. He was slow again at that. He ballooned it. He ended up further back then. Daryl Jacob really having to push him along. But the further he went through the race, his confidence was building. For all he was getting hampered left, right and centre. But his confidence, you could see, was just growing. And he really wasn't beat. I know he finished 10th, but he wasn't beaten that far whatsoever. And we know how well that form stacks up. Cool Cody falling, Midnight Shadow running another blinder, Zanza as well in there. And he really wasn't beaten that far. So I think that this step up in trip also should suit him on that basis. And he has an awful lot of ability. It's just whether he's got that bottle back now and the headgear will see him to a better effect. So I'm going to take a chance on that with Caribbean Boy, but I've got a saver on Cloth Cap all the same. If Caribbean Boy does end up too far back, then Cloth Cap is sure to give his running in this race. So yeah, a couple there for me, but ANNSAM then for Andrew in the 3 o'clock at Ascot. Now we're going to finish our scheduled races at Ascot with the 3:35. This is the Betfair Exchange Trophy, which is a grade 3 handicap hurdle for 4-year-olds and over just shy of 2 miles, where No Ordinary Joe currently heads the market. And it's fascinating to see him being well supported here to reverse the form of West Cork from the Greatwood, because I actually thought he probably should have won that race on ability, but he was just far, far too keen in that. And you never see a JP McManus horse ridden that far forwards with no cover when they're a keen goer. It's just, I can't believe that was by design by any means. So as I say, it was just a bit of a bizarre sight, really. And that, again, is going to be a concern here if Nico de Boinville does just struggle to hold him again. I know that was his reappearance start. He probably was fresh, but he was fiercely keen. So that's going to be a concern. Or if they ride him further back and he does get the cover that he does seemingly need, he may not get the prominent running style that seems to have been a factor in the last few runnings of this race. So for all I thought on ability, as I say, he probably should have won the Greatwood. I do have my concerns here. So I'm going to side with West Cork to hopefully uphold that form on the back of his win in the Greatwood, which was just a phenomenal training performance by Dan Skelton to get him to peak in one of the most competitive handicaps of the entire season on the back of a 21-month absence was unreal. But he certainly looked a graded hurdler as a novice, and he should have been far better than his marker 1:34 suggested on that return, which proved to be the case, because Harry Skelton also gave him the perfect ride because he rode him wide throughout, which was the place to be on the third day of the Cheltenham meeting. Then inside rail to stay away from, as was the case then with Adagio, who obviously was ridden wider throughout as well. But West Cork, he was sharp, he travelled so well, he jumped beautifully, and he kept on so bravely. And I thought after that, he could well work his way up to being one of the top two milers, at least in the handicapping division. So he is still pretty well handicapped in my mind, even with the £7 rise. So I am pleased to see him taking in this race, and I will side with him. But Andrew, yourself for this race.
Yeah, super tricky, isn't it? I mean, Not So Sleepy's won this for the last 2 years. 2 years ago, he was 92 joint favourite. Last year, he was 20 to 1 and he's made all. And it was almost hindsight bets where you think, well,
yeah.
And you were looking at it, thinking he's going to get taken on for the lead. And but this race does seem to have suited front runners in recent years. And Mohamed was never far away as well when winning it a few years ago for the Skeltons. I mean, I looked at the record of Greatwood winners next time out. They actually do pretty well. You make a profit backing them all. They haven't done brilliantly in this race, but a few have run well in defeat. So you couldn't really dismiss West Cork on that front. Maybe the softer ground's not going to be ideal. It wouldn't surprise me if we won at all. No Ordinary Joe, I wasn't keen on at 4 to 1. Samarive was quite impressive at Sandown when I bet a few against him, including Benson, who runs here. I mean, Benson ran an astonishing race in this race last year. He was 4th of 17. I mean, he looked more likely to be pulled up than place coming around the home turn. You can't believe him. I mean, I put him up as an each way bet, and I thought, oh, crikey, what have I done? Next thing, oh, hang on a minute. And, so he's got a visor on for the first time to sharpen him up. Yeah, difficult to know how he's going to react to that. Wouldn't put you off backing him each way, thinking that there could be a good pace. You've got one more for the road, of course. I mean, Goshen can make the running, but whether he will here remains to be seen. Trying to look through the other sort of, there's a Global Citizen, of course, generally runs well here.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a minefield. Given how well front runners have done, I was half tempted by Ben Pauling's Global Citizen. Just before we came on air to record this, he'd have a double over hurdles at Foss Lassie. His hurdles are running well at the moment. His chasers not so. Maybe that's just coincidence, but you know, he could give you a good run for your money from the front, perhaps. But I'm going to side with another Evan Williams runner, which is Mac the Man. He's won twice in big fields, 13 and 14 runners, including right-handed at Sandown. And I just thought, you know, off what should be a strong gallop, and you know, maybe Mac the Man can be ridden to pick up the pieces. And as an each way bet at 25 to 1, maybe some firms are going to be paying 5 places. You know, you can get beaten 20 lengths and still pick up the each way part of the bet. He didn't do well when he was switched to fences, and it sort of took him a bit of time to get back into the sort of hurdling routine. But yeah, he seemed to do it last time out. And yeah, at 25 to 1, I'll take a chance on him. But it's another one of those horribly difficult to predict messy races where you can make good cases for any one of a dozen or so.
Yeah, it's a brilliant spectacle of a race. It's not an easy one to solve, though, any by any means. But Mac the Man, the outsider of the lot there, missed the mount at 25 to 1. And he's a fascinating horse. I can never seem to get him right. I can never seem to get him right whatsoever. But he is. He is. You've always got the feeling there's more to come from him, and another big handicap in him somewhere along the way. So that might well prove the case here. And if you're getting him as the outsider, then certainly worth siding with here. And then you also like Global Citizen, who's second in as a second outsider, then 22-1 if he manages to go forward and make all, because that's sort of his only real way of going, isn't it? But yeah, so two big price ones there for Andrew, rather than I'm heading more towards the head of the market with West Cork. So Andrew, back to you for anything else from Ascot, please.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the first race, the 115. I love this race, which sounds quite bizarre because it's a novice's handicap hurdle, not really a good betting medium for me. But this has got a strong pattern to its name, this race. And the older horses, age 6+, have got a shocking record. Absolutely hopeless. And you just got to look at the younger ones. We've got 5-5-year-olds out of a field of... what do we got here? About 16 runners. I'll probably back them all each way, but picking between them, I was quite keen on Next Left, the Gary Moore yard, who I thought needs this stiffer test of stamina. Although I haven't looked at the pace map for the race, and again, this is another one of those races that on paper you think there's a big field, it's not going to suit front runners, but it often does go to a front runner. So yeah, look at 5-year-olds and look at front runners, and hopefully there's a front-running 5-year-old in there somewhere.
Yeah, so have a look at the pace map, but side with 5-year-olds, and the one who at this stage you like anyway is Next Left for the Gary Moore team, and that is the 12:40 at Ascot. Anything else from Ascot before we move on to Haydock?
No, that's it.
Perfect. We will skim across then to Haydock, and we begin with the 205. This is a 0-145 handicap hurdle for 3-year-olds and over 2 mile, 2.5 furlongs, with a race I found a little underwhelming when I was first looking through it, Andrew. I'm not entirely sure about you, but based on recent runnings of this race and kind of a caliber of horses we previously had, and I would have also have liked to have seen a few of these horses out already this season, or to at least have a really class act who we knew where we were more so with them than the ones we currently have in here. But we don't really have either of those two things to go to war with in this race. But Andrew, I hand this race to you to assess, please.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shocker, really, isn't it? I think, like you, I fell asleep halfway through as I look at this one. I mean, the one I was interested in when I first saw the decks was Navajo Pass, but that one's not running, unfortunately. And I mean, MACKELDUFF's the one who heads the market, who's been very well supported. Ollie Murphy's horses are running particularly well at the moment. He's maintaining a very high strike rate. And he's bidding to make it his third win in his last 4 starts. And but again, when you look through the sort of the recent roll of honour for this race, we've had a few shocks as well at times. Sorry, we haven't had a few shocks. It's generally gone to one sort of near the head of the betting, hasn't it? Even though we usually get a big field, it looks competitive. The market does tend to sort of get it right with this one. So. I did quite like MACKELDUFF. I didn't think there was a bad run behind Gal Road at Cheltenham last time out. Gal Road got a bit of an easy on the front end, and though MACKELDUFF was perhaps not, Aidencom was perhaps a little bit late to react to the way the race was unfolding, and so I thought he'd done well to get third. So will the ground be a bit soft for him? Possibly. But there's not a huge amount of evidence for that. He just hasn't raced or anything softer than good to soft. But yeah, I thought MACKELDUFF was sort of, fair enough. I thought he'd run a good race.
Yeah, as you say, he looks sort of one of the more sure ones to actually give you a run for your money, isn't he? MACKELDUFF there at around 11-4, and he's been fairly cut in from his opening price as well. But yeah, at least we know where we are more so with him. I mean, if I was having a token gesture in this race, I mean, this was a race where I was happy to leave it alone. But I'd say, even though the trends would say it doesn't really come as too much of a shock for the winner of this race, but the outsider of a lot, Ngolo, he could do absolutely anything, this horse. I have no idea what to really make of his chances, or how he's going to shape up for Anne Duffield on his stable debut then for her after leaving Willie Mullins's, where of course he was highly thought of for an awful long period of time, the son of Galileo. But he's a bit of a monkey. He really is. He'd nearly talk to you, such as his intelligence, which sometimes doesn't always favour a horse because they know a bit too much about the game. But this change of yards may well freshen him up on that basis, because he is that sort of a thinker of a horse. And behind the top weight there, Soul Emotion, he is the second highest rated horse in this. And when I was really sort of looking for that class angle to know where we are with them in this race, I didn't have that, because with Soul Emotion, who knows how he's going to go? We haven't seen him since January 2020. So for all we talk about West Cork and Dan Skelton being able to ready them on the back of a lengthy absence and to prove to be the class horse in a handicap, I'd probably still take him on at that price. So Angolo, as a 25-1 outsider of a lot, second highest rated in here, could well be served well from the freshen up then from the move of yards and just being sweetened up by being sort of a big fish in a smaller pond, so to speak. And if they do ride him prominently, because he is a keen going type, and if Kevin Brogan just takes him on forwards, he may get his own way out in front, enjoy himself. You know, it might go favour a prominent racer yet again then this race, and he will be fit for this. So yeah, I will token gesture then, side the outsider of a lot, an Ngolo to hopefully put his decent form to good use at some point. So we'll move on to the 240. Far more to talk about in the Tommy Whistle handicap chase. It's a 0-1-4-5 handicap chase for 4-year-olds and over 3 miles and 1.5 furlongs. And of course, the whole roll of honour then for horses in this race. But really, really do like this Remastered. Oh, I'm still sick. I'm still sick about this horse from his fall. When, of course, it was fairly far out when he did fall at Newbury, though, in the Ladbroke Trophy. But even so, he wouldn't have stopped, in my opinion. But falling at the 4th last when there was absolutely no stride for him whatsoever, no fault of jockey or anyone there, but able to run off of the same mark here or the same. So hopefully he can make amends for that. But yeah, really fascinating contest. But I'm sticking with Remastered anyway, Andrew. But how about yourself?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? When a horse was going really well and then falls, do you think, well, if he'd stayed on his feet, he would have won, and I should back him next time? Or is that going to have affected his confidence and he's going to take a backward step? So again, he's one of those that, yeah, he could easily bolt up and you'd think, crikey, 7-2 is a good price, but I'll leave him alone and just look for something at a bigger price each way. I mean, one thing to do with the Tommy Whittle is to generally avoid the older horses. In the last 15 runnings, 9-year-olds are 0 from 46. Expected wins was in excess of 3. I mean, if you just back young horses, 8 or younger, they've had a very recent run within 14 days. This century, 7 winners from 21, profit of 37.75. And if you just took in the last 10 years, 8-year-olds or younger would raced within the last 4 weeks. Again, you'd have made a good profit. So look for the younger horses, look for race fitness. And I just realised I haven't actually looked at this since the final declarations because I did this race a few days ago.
The election is gone.
So I'm now hoping my shortlist that some of them are actually running. So Jadero Vallis, is that one? This was one you tipped up, of course, wasn't it, last time?
Yeah. He's not here.
Yeah, he's not in it. So that's one of them gone. Mac Totty. That was another one.
Yeah, he's also not here.
Yeah, that's helpful, isn't it?
Really helpful.
The other one's Fortescue Empire Steel. So have we got Empire Steel?
No.
Oh, crikey. Unfortunately.
This shortlist is getting shorter by the second.
This was the problem with sort of not having much time between declarations.
Yeah, it's trying to assess the race when you've got runners that like six.
Sam's Adventures bidding to win it for the second year in a row, but he's a 9-year-old now. So really it was just a case of like, using stats, split it by age, look for the recent outing. Fuji Flight possibly for Venetia, who obviously prefers this one to Didero Vallis. And Buzzed Talking.
Buzz.
Number 11, the Samuel Drinkwater horse.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. Yeah. Buzzed Coing, I think.
Yeah, I'll let you pronounce that one.
No, yeah, let me take the fall.
I mean, it was a fairly sort of modest race he won at Ayr last time, but he has won here at Haydock on heavy ground. And Haydock's one of those tracks where it's a big field handicap chases. You think, they're going to set it up for the closers, and then they just keep grinding it out in front. And those who travel smoothly in behind don't seem to pick up. And horses who are like a length behind, you might as well multiply that by 5 because they're just a bit like air. They don't seem to pick up. So the fact that this one has sort of done his winning at Ayr and Haydock under rules, flat left-handed tracks, maybe he can get into a rhythm out front. So I'll go Buzz to Coing.
Yeah, we'll go with miss out a syllable and we'll be fine. No one will notice.
It's the Thibbleton Tebow all over again.
Yeah. We've got a whole load to add to our list now of the Tebow list. That's what we're going to call it from now on. But yeah, Buzz the TURCOING I'm going to go with for now. Around a 10-1 shot then for Sam Drinkwater to build on that win from last time out. But I was happy you touched on a few of those trends there because as you say, I was looking for sort of 6 to 8 year olds really. Remastered, obviously being an 8-year-old in here then. Really, I only wanted a horse rated between 130 to 139. So Remastered is probably a little bit high on that basis, but there's no denying he is obviously very feasibly handicapped still on his ability. And again, that does see him carrying quite a hefty weight in this contest, but at least he'll be ridden prominently. He does have race fitness on his side, and he has now had near enough about 3 weeks since his last run, which obviously, as you say, you probably want about a month, really ideal. So Remastered. But the other one on those trends that we've just been touching upon that I'm just going to have a bit of a savor on is actually Shanty Alley as well, just to keep an eye on him because 7-year-old rated 130, so he's just sort of getting into my bracket really. Nice racing weight. Jack Andrews taking £5 off of his back after his treble the other day at Doncaster, so he's been in flying form since he's turned professional, Jack Andrews, and being well supported. Ben Case in flying form himself. Hopefully he will be ridden prominently as well, because that's sort of the way he goes about things, as we know, and so in this race that should suit. And he did unseat last time out at Uttoxeter on his reappearance start, but it was at the third last, so I'm hoping by that stage of a race, he will have had the fitness now established to be taking forwards into this second run of the season. So, and again, he's another one that's had a month since that last run. So I thought Shanty Alley was certainly one to keep an eye on in this race at a bigger price, should you just fear that Remastered, if his confidence might well be knocked. So I'm siding with a faller and an unseater from last time out. Great angles to take into the race, I'm sure. So that's all of our covered scheduled races then, Andrew. So I will switch it back to you, please, for anything else from Haydock.
Yeah, the 1150 Chiti Balko for the Donald McCain yard. He's £6 lower than when winning this race last year. He was a fair third at Wetherby after wind surgery. That ground would have been quick enough for him. He loves the mud. So, Chiti Balko to defy top weight in the 1150. In the 1220, just want to check that. Not really. I was sort of half interested in Adramel persevering over fences after that. It was an Exeter disaster on Chase debut. So that's going to be interesting to see how he copes over fences with the headgear on. But that was just a race to watch with a view to the future, really.
Yeah, they say he's fascinating. We know the ability he has on his win in the Leamington Novices Hurdle last season. So yeah, fascinating to see if the headgear, if he does take to the fences any better there in the 1220 at Haydock. But in the 1150, it's Chiti Balko then for Andrew in the opening race at Haydock. So Andrew, anything from anywhere else of all of these other meetings going on?
Yeah, I had a look at Lingfield. If you watched any Lingfield racing on Wednesday, there was a massive bias to wide runners. You couldn't win anywhere near the inside rail. And
Jason Watson knew that.
Exactly, he was right. He rode brilliantly. But now there's a horse called Fizzy Feet running on Saturday, and she's got a fantastic record at Lingfield in small fields. I put her up as a bet the last time she had these conditions, but it was 7 furlongs. She didn't quite see it out. She finished second. Now she's in stall 1. She's 2-1. She's going to make the running. You would think this is 6 furlongs, but how's the track riding? Will Laura Pearson take her a little bit wider, or will she stay on the inside rail? And if she gets loose on the lead and stays off the fence, I think Fizzy Feet could take some catching in this race. But I'd like to watch the first couple of races really before getting involved.
Yeah, and say just to see if that bias is still prevalent.
Yeah, that's the 125 race, I should say.
Yeah,
Class 2 6 furlong handicap.
The 125, that's horse number 2, Fizzy Feet. So hopefully, if the bias is still there, Laura Pearson can overcome stall 1 then to take her wider into the home straight. So fascinating few other bets then from Andrew as well. So all that is left for me to do, Andrew, is just to get your nap, please.
I'm going to go Night Salute in the first race we covered at Ascot, the 150.
Perfect. Yep, in the 150 then for Night in Dubai. Sorry, was it?
No, not in Dubai. So Night Salute, the Milton Harris.
Yeah, you juvenile. Yeah, not quite a handicap chaser just yet, but maybe in time. Yeah, so Night in Dubai then in the 150 at Ascot for Andrew's nap, and I am going to go for Remastered. Oh gosh, yeah, in the 240 at Haydock to hopefully rewrite the wrong from the Ladbroke Trophy. And as I say, I am just keeping an eye on Shanty Alley nonetheless. In that race, but Remastered for me, hopefully, to just serve all his connections well after how gutted they must have been from that. So, Andrew, thank you so much for your company, and thank you so much for all of your hard work in a very short time. Not at all. And thank you so much, of course, to all of you for watching and listening, to our sponsors, SBK, and hopefully we'll have Daryl Carter back again next week. But you can catch up with the lads' blogs then prior to their weekend bets at GG.CO.UK. Of course, so do catch up with all of the selections there, and we will see you again next week.